Welcome back to the Other Side of 45's podcast. I'm your host, Randy Black. This podcast is about taking chances, owning my mistakes, addressing generational family trauma and curses, completing my 50/50s by 50 list, and my life as a single empty nester. If this is your first time listening, welcome! Please subscribe and rate this podcast 5 stars. So, it's the last day of Black History Month. Let's jump right into it. So last year on my Instagram, I posted a picture of night swimming alone. I had waited for my daughters to return from whatever event or activity they were engaged in to accompany me. I wanted someone to join me because it's just more fun to swim with a friend. The girls and I had enjoyed time around the pool throughout the summer, and I don't particularly care for swimming during the heat of the day. It feels like being in a pot of water, just like you're boiling. I don't like that. But swimming at night, now that's refreshing. Plus, on this particular night, I was alone. I had the pool to myself, but I was hesitant to go alone. There had been a few times that I waited for one of the girls to return home to join me. There were times that they were home, but didn't feel like swimming. But this day, I really wanted to go swimming. So like Superwoman, I suited up in my first ever two-piece. Also something new for me. Relax. It's a two-piece, not a bikini. I wouldn't do that to my innocent neighbors. I grabbed my pool essentials and headed for the pool. I turned on my favorite playlist. I took a deep breath and entered the pool. Now, this is not me adding drama. I do take deep breaths anytime I enter a pool because the shock of the cold water has always caused me pause. And it takes me a few minutes to get used to the cold water, and I basically tiptoe into the pool and I have to force myself to immerse in the water. This happens almost every time. Now, once I'm completely immersed, it feels great. And that night was no different. Then since I was alone, my mind began playing tricks on me. Like, I have this knack for scaring myself with impossible scenarios. Like this, when I'm in the water and I start remembering scenes from the movie Jaws. You know, Jaws in the water. Even though that was the ocean and I'm in a pool, I always scare myself, and I can hear that music, dunna, dunna, dunna. And I end up freaking myself out. Plus, it was dark and I'm by myself. But basically, any movie where animals attack people in the water. Like even this one very cheesy movie from way back in the day. And there was this alligator. Anyway, these are the things that come to my mind when I'm in the pool. Daylight or otherwise. But it's worse at night. Anywho. After convincing myself of the ridiculousness of being attacked by animals that aren't in the pool, I enjoyed my time. Now, I didn't actually swim. I just waded through the water, singing along with my favorite artists. Then I came up with the idea of posting this milestone on Instagram. So I took a picture. It's dark, and it looked mostly purple. It actually looked like a road. Anyway, the picture was just terrible. But I added to the post that about how I learned to swim, and that both of my daughters were level 5 swimmers. When I posted my swim lesson, my childhood friend, a woman I've known since we were in kindergarten together. Yep, we went to kindergarten together. She responded, wait, I haven't told you how I learned to swim. Okay, so let me back up. I'm going too far. So here's the story of how I learned to swim. I did not know when I was a child that it was a stereotype that Black people couldn't swim. I didn't get that until I was much older. As a child, most of my friends could swim. And there was a public pool that we will walk to as children. Now, those of us that's on the same side of 45 as I am know that walking where you wanted to go without an adult was common when we were children. So a group of us would walk the 2.5+ miles from where I live, which was called Hahn Village, to Eustis Park. Yes, I actually mapped the route, so I know it was at least 2.5 miles. Side note, for those unfamiliar with those two places, Hahn Village was or is a public housing for low-income families built in 1979. I learned this when I looked up Hahn Village to get the route that it's being demolished. It's been years since I've been there. So I did read about that. And Eustis Park is a city park. Now, back in the day, there was a pool, but it was removed when the park was renovated. However, like I said, back in the 80s, we kids would walk the over 2 miles alone to swim. The cost to go to the pool was like 50 cents. Very cheap. But there would be a crowd of kids, teenagers mostly, that didn't have the money to get in. And they would hang around the fence looking at those of us fortunate enough to afford the price of admission to swim. Now, some of these kids would sneak in or jump the fence when the lifeguard wasn't looking, or one of their friends would finagle it so they can get in without paying the 50 cents. But anyway, that's not even the point. Now, the pool would be full of young Black children of all ages. Now, I was on the younger side, no more than maybe 5 or 6, eager to prove that I could swim like the older kids. Some of the less adventurous kids would hold on to the rope in the middle of the pool that separated the deep end from the shallower end. Now, this pool's deep end was 12 feet. That's where you will find the more experienced swimmers, mostly teens and young adults, I assume. I'm not really sure. At my age, I was not able to determine age. I just saw tall young people horsing around in the pool. And we would be playing in the shallower end, and without any notice whatsoever, one of these older kids would lift us up out of the water and throw us into the deeper end. It was sink or swim time. If you struggled, they would pull you out, and there were times I would be terrified of not making it back up to the surface. As you can probably conclude, I made it to the surface. My siblings and I loved the pool, and when swim lessons were offered, Mother enrolled us and my cousin. On the first day of swim class, the instructor asked who could swim. My twin sibling and I had learned how to swim from being thrown into the deep end, but we were really shy back when we were kids. We were too shy to show off our skills to the instructor. Now, my older sibling proudly swam a few feet and was moved to a more advanced class. My twin sibling and I shyly stayed with our younger cousin in the beginner class. The instructor learned early on that we were more advanced than the beginner class, and did indeed. He taught us more than the others. My younger cousin was too afraid to leave the pool steps, as were many of the students in our class. Now, I remember on either the last day or one of the last days of class, we were taken to the deep end of the pool, and we were given an opportunity to jump into the 12 feet. My twin sibling and I, by this time, we had more confidence, and we would jump right in and swim. So you would jump in and then swim to the hanging stairs. And we were able to do that in the class. We were also given an opportunity to dive off the diving board, but I was not ready for that. I still don't do diving boards to this day. My siblings, both of them and I, we never missed an opportunity to swim. And as we got older, we were surprised at the number of Black children and adults that couldn't swim and who were afraid of the water. Now, I'm not as strong a swimmer as I wish I was, but I can swim in the ocean, and of course, pools, lakes, streams, ponds, any body of water, I can swim in it. Matter of fact, years ago when I went snorkeling while on a cruise, and there were no snorkelers of color in our group, just me and my twin sibling, I was able to swim in the ocean. Of course, there's no rope or anything to keep you up. You just swim. And we did. And now some groups do give you a life jacket, and we were offered them. I remember we started out with life jackets, but I found them a little cumbersome because I really wanted to go under. So we both ended up taking our life jackets off and actually swimming in the ocean, looking at the beautiful fish. It was so much fun. But anyway, back to the point of this. So when I posted the picture of me night swimming, I explained that I had learned with one swimming lesson and lots of near-death experiences from well-meaning older children throwing me in the deep end. Like I said, one of my oldest friends saw the post, and she too remembered what it was like being thrown by the older kids. And she grew up actually with us on the same street in Hahn's Village. I mean, it's been for 40 years, so I didn't remember that she too was one of the kids walking to the pool until she responded to my post. I was like, oh yeah, you was with us. Anyway, she said that she was too scared after being thrown that she never learned to swim, but she made certain that her children learned. Now, I can recall when I made the decision that my children would take lessons. The girls were about the same age as I was when I learned, maybe 5 or 6 years old. And we were living in the suburbs of Atlanta, and there was a community pool. Okay, so the day the pool opened for the season, all of the residents in the community were invited to the pool opening, whether you were a member of the HOA or not. So I packed up the swim toys and headed to the pool with the girls. The girls were waiting in the shallow end, unable to swim, but had floaters on to keep them above water. And I watched, because it was a diverse neighborhood, but predominantly white. So I watched how the non-minority children were jumping off the sides and swimming in the entire pool while my little babies were giggling and keeping close to the edge and the stairs. It was a wake-up call, and I'm glad I received it. I was determined not to allow my children to be non-swimmers. They were not going to be a stereotype, and as soon as I could, I enrolled them in swim lessons along with my nephew. The kids were unafraid and excited to learn to swim. They learned to swim in a competition pool with lanes and diving boards, and they continued to take lessons until they reached diving, which is level 5. So level 5 swimmers, they can swim freestyle, breaststrokes, backstroke, 25 yards. They can tread water, diving, and what they call stroke refinement. So that's just like, anyway, it's in the name. So by the time they reached high school, my girls were asked to join the swim team. Now, they were already in cheer and dance, and swim season was the same season as cheer. Now, don't think I didn't try to figure out how to squeeze swim into their already busy schedule, but it just couldn't happen. And although I would have loved for my girls to compete on their high school swim team, I'm just actually proud that they have broken decades-long stereotypes that Black people can't swim. And when Simone Manuel competed in the Olympic Games and won a gold medal in the 100 meter, I was elated to see her become the first African-American woman to win an individual swimming medal at any Olympic Games. And I thought maybe some young Black girl or boy saw her compete and thought to themselves, I can do that. And even though we made considerable progress decades after the end of Jim Crow laws that kept Black people out of white pools, African Americans still have a complicated relationship with swimming. It's interesting to know that if a parent can't swim, there's only a 13% chance that their child will learn. Now, my mother couldn't swim then, and to this day she can't swim. But she made sure that her children learn. 69% of Black children and 58% of Latino children can't swim, compared to 42% of white children. And Black children drown at a rate of almost 3 times higher than white children. So I tell my swim story to every Black parent I know. And I was telling this story to a good friend of mine, and she has 2 sons. And she admitted that she didn't know how to swim. And I asked, because we have this kind of relationship, okay, before you be like, what? Y'all in her business? But anyway, I asked her, I said, do you want the same for your sons? And she said she hadn't really thought about it. And so we are now looking into finding a place to put her sons in lessons so that her family can end that curse. Now, I did suggest that she too take lessons, but she's less than enthusiastic about taking lessons herself. I'm hoping more minority parents break the generational curse and enroll their children in swim lessons. Whether my daughters choose to wade in the water like I did for my evening swim, dive off the diving board into 12 feet, or snorkel in tropical waters, I am thankful that Mother broke this generational curse for our family. So here's to being proud of my family for moving past this stereotype on this last day of a Black History Month. Okay, I'm not trying to say we're Black history, because we're not. But like the theme song of my life, Just Fine, by Mary J. Blige says, I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stretch through the night, at a time of my life, ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight, I got my vibe right. I ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I wouldn't change my life. My life's just fine. Meet me on the other side of 45's podcast, blog, YouTube, and Instagram. New episodes will be released every Monday. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember to rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts so others can find it. It helps me grow my podcast. Your feedback and support is appreciated.